Hi everyone, this is Chapter 7, Pause and Practice 1, Movie Number 2. I am starting on step number 5. We left off in the last movie where we put in a data validation for this column D data. So now what I'm going to do is look at circling and deleting invalid data. So the technique here is that you're putting this rule on here, but you already have data in there, right? So what about the data that's already there? So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we still have D5 through D29 selected. And we're going to come back into the data tools, down arrow from the data validation button. And now what we're going to do is say circle invalid data. So it's going to look at that rule that we applied after data was there, and it's going to look for any pieces of data that are exceptions that break the rule, and it's going to circle it, right? So we have these two negative numbers there. So for those two, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a 0 in there. Oh no, what are we putting in? I apologize, we're not putting a 0, we're deleting. So we're going to just hit delete and delete. Right? Circle, delete, delete. All right, so now we're going to come up here and we're going to select clear validation circles. So we fixed that data and then we wanted to get rid of the circles that were on from the old bad data. And it still was there because the validation required greater than 0. So blank is not greater than 0. So that's why it was still an exception. All right, so now what we want to do, we're on step number 6, create a data validation setting with a list. Okay, so this is a really cool way to validate. So we're going to select, go to validation list and take a look at what we got here. So on this one, we are going to select A2 through A4. So these are the so those are the departments that are valid. So I select those, right? And then we want to make sure they're in ascending order. So we're just going to sort A to Z. Mine were already there, so I didn't have to do anything. So now we're going to go back to the inventory sheet, and we're going to select C5 through C29. So this is the department cells that we want to use that validation list over here on the validation list sheet to be one of the appropriate selections. So let's go ahead and come up here to data validation, settings. This time under allow, instead of a whole number, we're going to say a list, right? Now the source here, we're going to click on the source. We're going to come over to validation list and we're going to select A2 through A4. We're not going to put any input message or error alert, so we're just going to go ahead and do OK. So now look at what happens over here. As I click in here, I get a drop down. So this data validation allows me to build a drop down list from something, and now I can use it to enter the data. So if we look at, let's see, step number 7, we're going to select C5. We want to do apparel. C6. I'm typing an A. It found it, right? We're going to come down here to this, and it's going to be a gift. So I'm going to do G, G, the pen, let's see, 23 is a gift. And then 28 and 29 are health aids. So I'm going to do an H and an H. So you could do the down arrow, or you can use the letters of the choices. But super, super cool way to validate data and make sure, hey, here's the list of choices. You're not going to have a typo. You're not going to have anything mismatched because you are requiring them to pick it from the list. Okay, so now we want to go to the responses sheet. I'm going to click on responses, and look, we have some data that's not filled in, so I'm thinking we're going to do a data validation list here. So I'm going to start by selecting B3 through B39, so this whole list, so there's room for growth here. Data validation button, data validation. We're going to allow from the list. Our source is going to be not something that already exists. I'm going to type it in here. So I'm going to type intern. And one of the things that you want to watch here, I'm going to say this before I keep typing, is you want to make sure you don't have any typos here, because whatever you put here is what is going to happen. So we're going to type intern, comma, manager, comma, representative, no spaces after each comma. So the comma separates the choices and no spaces, right? So now we want to go to our error alert and verify that show alert after invalid data is checked. We want to make this a warning. And for the title, we're going to say, wait. And then the error message is going to be, please, let's see, choose from the list. So a warning lets them put whatever they're typing, but you're just saying, hey, you really should pick from the list. But it would allow them to put in something different. I'm going to go ahead and do OK. I'm going to come up here to B4, pick intern. All right, B5, I'm going to pick, what am I picking? Staff. Okay, staff's not there, so I'm going to type staff. And then when I go to hit enter, I'm going to get this warning that I put up here, and it says, hey, please choose from the list. But look at my choices. It allows me to continue and use staff, or no, and it'll let me pick it, or cancel, and it'll put me back in there. We're going to go ahead and say yes to allow it. So look, even though staff wasn't one of my list, it still let me put it. All right, so then manager for B6, and I think we have them all filled in. We're going to go up home, so control home, and we're going to click the save button. Now remember, we're saving this as a template, okay? And then what we want to do is we want to actually close the workbook, okay? So I am actually going to do a file close, and I'm going to have, oops, there's my pretty flower. So I'm going to have, I'm going to pull Excel back up. I'm going to have Excel come up here, and it is going to be no file on it. Getting ready for the pause and practice too. But I'm going to stop this movie at that point, get my instructions loaded up, and we'll continue from there. All right, guys, thanks.